Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. I hope you are joining. Okay. All right. I think we have everyone in the room now. Not yet. Let's wait for 2 more people. There is some congestion in our hangout room, but it's slowly getting here. How is everyone today? Is everyone excited about the event? I hope so. Yes. Okay, Greta, thank you. Good to see you, by the way. Good to see you. There are some new faces as well, I think. There are some faces that I've seen before. By the way, feel free to show your face if you want to, and if you don't want to, you can always, mute yourself and hide. There will be time later to also ask your questions if you have any. So feel free to unmute. In case you haven't used Google Hangouts before, we have a whole range of fun features here. So first of all, you have the reactions. If you ever want to cheer or applause something that you hear, feel free to use it. But also, if at any point you want to ask a question, you can see an icon or the raise hand. So use this if you want to join in or ask a question or share a tip. We also have the chat if you prefer to just type your question there. We will have hopefully time for everything. With me today, we have Ceri and Louie. Unfortunately, Nicole is not able to join us today due to illness, but I'm sure that we will still rock this event and Nicole will be able to join us in 2024. And I think, stop talking now, and I will leave it to our guests to introduce themselves. So, Ceri, would you like to start?
Absolutely. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking your time to come and listen to us here today. So I'm Ceri Parks. A little bit about myself. So professionally, I started my career as a business analyst over 20 years ago. That was in IT. And I've pretty much stayed in IT since. I've kind of navigated outside of the boundaries of that a little bit, but majority IT focused. And so navigated from business analyst through to a project manager. I kind of, when I was in that business analyst space, I was just looking at a small piece of the pie and I just wanted to kind of see more. So I moved into project management, grew from there into senior project manager, program manager. And then I don't know if I was lucky enough or unlucky enough to take voluntary redundancy. And that kind of gave me a buffer of cash to move into a freelance world. I had wanted to do it for some time, but I had always worried about the periods of not having a job and not having that sort of pot of money behind me. So this redundancy gave me that push that I needed. Moved into freelancing, was really focused then on change and transformation consulting, using that project management experience as a basis. So stayed, as I said, mainly within IT, but varied kind of industries though in the IT sector. So, automotive, retail, insurance, a little bit of banking, some medical as well. And then I got a call maybe 3 or so years ago from a previous client of mine saying, hey, we're growing at a rapid rate and we need somebody to sit alongside us in an operations position. So I took on the role there of sort of COO and was responsible for a team of people heading up the strategy, running the day-to-day operations. I actually left that job earlier this year, and I've moved into executive coaching. So that's really my kind of go-to at the moment. I worked, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit more later on in the talk, but I worked with a coach earlier this year and very quickly realized, there are elements of my job that I love and that I don't love. And those elements that I love were mainly working with my team, working with people, really empowering them to be the best people the best version of themselves. And so coaching was the way to go. Yeah, that's my focus right now. So that's me. Louie, over to you.
Okay. Hi all, and yeah, thanks. I'm Louie, so I'm a creative director. Throughout my career, I've been mainly freelance, a couple of permanent positions here and there, but always ended up kind of heading back into the freelance area. I've been in the creative industry for about 14 years, I think. Always kind of like sneaks up on you. I grew up in the Southwest, and I studied down there as well. And once I'd finished my studies, I moved up to London. I maybe had a slightly different career path than a lot of people, because while I was studying, I was a single parent, and I studied as a mature student. So it meant that kind of when I moved up to London, it was quite a big move, because it was with all of my family, and it was quite a kind of significant relocate. But yeah, so that's been me, and since moving up here, and yeah, it's been really great, and just a wide range of clients really, and a wide range of freelancing, from very small projects to much larger things to kind of more sustained. And then a few, like I say, a few permanent things thrown in there. And yeah, that's me.
Thank you both. So today we have two speakers, but actually we cover the whole spectrum of freelance roles, kind of from tech to creative. So that's going to be an interesting talk, hopefully. Great. So could you maybe tell us a little bit more what inspired you to first of all start in the sector that you started in? Ceri, would you like to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. So what inspired me to start in IT, I'm going to have to be honest and say it was kind of the job that came along, and it's the, you know, I, similarly to Louie, actually, I went to uni as a mature student. So I went to uni at 25, and I started in IT probably at 19. So I did, you know, moved to London from South Africa, worked in bars as you do, and got my first job as a business analyst in telecoms, but actually within the sort of the finance and IT department, and worked in that sort of arena for a few years, and then at 25 decided, you know, I'll do a degree, and did it in IT and management, because that was obviously the space that I was in. As part of my thesis, I did a piece of work on a project in the insurance sector that they spent £70 million on, and worked on it for 5 years, and ultimately it went absolutely nowhere. And that was fascinating to me. And I think that really, I was already deeply involved, like deeply loved the whole change and transformation piece, you know, well before I moved into it, sort of 15 or so years later. And yeah, so I kind of, you know, fell into it, but it's definitely was the right place for me before I moved into executive coaching.
Interesting way to start, kind of by chance, but actually you found your way there.
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. What about you, Louie?
Well, I think my whole family have always been very creative. We've got a kind of, you know, whether they've applied that in the work environment or not, it's just generally always the creative family when I was growing up. And when I went to university originally, I studied fine art for my degree, which I loved, and I really did particularly like the art history side of that, and the ability to put things in context and stuff like that. Then when I finished that, I wanted to take on and have a look at the commercial side of creativity and how I would apply that. And also from a kind of practical sense, being a single parent, I had to think about how I could do something with my creativity that meant that I could make some money. So hence I went back to university and studied for another 2 years graphics. But I think that the 3 years fine art gave me a really kind of like an amazing grounding for a lot of understanding and context. And then yeah, when I was doing that course, I really loved kind of getting the brief of the little project, and I loved the kind of the constraint of it. Whereas when you're kind of in fine art, it's anything, and you know, everything is open, and I quite liked that kind of restriction as a challenge. And then when I actually kind of first started out doing the first few projects, that kind of thrill of seeing the impact that your work can have, you know, even if that's like a very small thing, just really great to kind of be able to see your creativity working in that kind of commercial work, and bringing something forward and helping something be realized. So yeah, that for me is my kind of inspiration.
Thank you. And you both mentioned something, and this question was not in the agreed agenda, but I think this is quite important, might be quite important for anyone who's in this room. You both said that you were mature students, so you started your degree slightly later in life. Do you think there are any benefits, or does this benefit someone better if they actually start their next degree or even their first degree later in life? How does this decision, is it a more mature decision, would you say? How does it happen?
So I actually have a really strong opinion on this. And I am very glad that I waited. Very, very, very glad. There are few people in my life that I've met that have gone to university, spent 3 or 4 years studying, and actually then continue to work in that field. You know, there might be some that, you know, knew that they wanted to be an accountant or knew that they wanted to be a doctor. But for the vast majority of people, they go and study something and then they end up in a completely different job. And for me, I knew what I wanted to do because I was already working in it. And so I feel like that, for me personally, was absolutely the right thing to do because I studied the career that I was already in.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you will never really know. Like, you know, ultimately one's experiences, that's my experience. And for me, like, you know, like you say, it was a really positive thing. And I think to have that kind of like real world working experience and just to kind of understand how that works was really helpful, and kind of stood me in good stead to kind of go into a professional working environment and doing something that I'd studied. But I mean, I think now that university is so expensive, I think, you know, going in early is fine, you know. And my oldest has just finished her degree and she was very focused on what she wanted to do, and she knew, and you know, that's really great. I think the mistake is if you don't know and you're not quite sure, but you're worried that you know, this is your only opportunity. And I think when you're young, everything can seem like it's you know, quite immediate, but it doesn't have to be. You know, taking that time out is and doing something completely different is not any less valid than just going straight into uni. But for me, it's worked as a mature student.
Thank you. That's great to hear. It's a slightly non-orthodox story. Usually well, I think also what the market demands from us is get a degree and start looking for work, but show us your degree. Well, it is definitely possible to do it in a slightly different way. And also I think the decisions made this way might actually be more mature and make you more happy in your career, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Perfect. Definitely. Lovely. Okay, so let's move on to another question, which is, are there any specific skills or the type of experience which make it easier to progress in your line of career?
Yes, so if I speak specifically from an operations director perspective, for that, I'd say you really need to be flexible. You need to be able to stop and start, have have a really keen eye for opportunities and risks, and where you see the risks, be able to mitigate those. Be calm in a crisis. I mean, like I don't know whether it's the jobs that I'm attracted to or that get attracted to me, but there seems to be constant crisis. And then understand people, and know how to support them. And for me, that was the thing that I loved the most, working with a team of people.
Yeah, I think for me, like with any designer, you know, from the very start, the sooner you can be kind of like aware of this, the better. But particularly if you're in an art director or creative director role, I think context of things within the world is the most important thing. So understanding how you know, this, say you're doing this rebrand, an understanding of how that company fits in within the world, and not just kind of the, oh, it's targeted at 30s to 40-year-olds, it's this, that, and the other. Just you know, an understanding of what is going on in the world at the moment, the general feeling, what, you know, what are the kind of intangible aspects of what's going on, and social history and things. And I think that you know, putting things in context, and if you're able to kind of practice that with kind of, I sometimes always have conversations with a few of my family about, you know, putting things in context and where do they fit, and where do they fit socially, and what are they seen as. And recently I went to a talk with Grace and Perry, and we had it was a show all about you, and it was very much about kind of how things sit in society and how they're seen. And I think that that particularly at a senior level of creativity is just so important, because if you don't have that, you can have a really beautiful design that's amazing, but if it doesn't connect with people and it doesn't resonate, then it won't be successful, in my opinion. And I think that we've seen that. Don't ask me to name brands, but we've definitely seen where that's not worked, and it's not necessarily because the design hasn't been beautiful or everything hasn't been thought out, it's just not connected at the end. So yeah, I think that's kind of like the key thing. And I mean, so far as kind of software and things, I think, you know, I try not to kind of worry too much about that. Try to keep up with it. I think it's important because you need to be kind of quite hands-on now as a creative. But I think, you know, you can't be great at every single software or every single aspect of creativity. And sometimes there's a temptation, especially when you see a lot of kind of job postings and things, that they want everything, but you can't. But I think it's helpful if you have an understanding of those processes, and that will help you when you have to kind of manage a team, look at budgets and timelines. I think those constraints will make you better at managing a team if you know that. So yeah, those are my kind of two things.
Thank you. So we've covered education and skills. How about mentorship? Is it important in your career? Have you had a mentor? Did you find it useful if you had?
Yeah, so for me, I've had a number of mentors throughout my career, both male and female. And they've honestly been imperative. And it was, I think, World Mentor Day just about a month or so ago. And it really kind of made me reflect actually on the importance that they had in my life and in my career. I learned a lot. You know, a key thing for me was when I came to this country, I was very direct, and I don't know whether that was just me as an individual or whether that was the South African in me, but I was very direct, and it wasn't sitting particularly well with my peers, my British peers. And my first mentor helped me a lot with that, really helped me to understand the impact that my words, tone, kind of the way that I portrayed myself was impacting the people around me, and changing that slightly in myself had a major positive impact in my career, and the relationships that I have with my peers and my seniors as well. So yeah, I've had probably at least 6 different mentors throughout my career, as well as professional coaches. So I worked with professional coach in the past, and I think, as I said at the start, I worked with a coach at the start of this year, and that engagement really helped me to identify this new career path, which really fits well for me in where I am in my life right now.
Thank you. Louie, what about you?
Well, I think I've had limited kind of mentorship, really. I think early on in my career, I didn't really have anybody that I would kind of say officially mentored me. My tutor and my design degree was amazing and treated the kind of course very much like a professional environment, which was great, because it just kind of gave me a glimpse into what it might be like working in a creative environment. But I think, having come from the Southwest and kind of quite far removed from, say, London, where it's very, design world is very London centric, and also coming from a very working class background, I wouldn't have ever known where to start with like a mentorship. So so not from early on. But I've definitely throughout my career worked with some really great people that has really helped me. Some amazing creative directors that kind of give you that freedom to test things out, but give you kind of like a kind of a cushion to test things out and have a go at things, but have that guidance, and that if it doesn't quite work out, then they'll be able to steer you in the right direction. And then also just to be able to see senior people, senior women at their level in their careers, where they're able to have that work-life balance, because that is, to me, is crucial, because that's what I wanted. And even if you're just seeing that and talking to those people, that's for me is really great. Also, in the last few years, I've joined part of a group of people called Common People, and they're really great, and they have a really active WhatsApp group, and we found that to be a kind of a really accessible platform to just openly chat. And I think that that's really helped, just that shared experience of perhaps how necessarily in the creative industry the representation of working class people is very low, and to have somewhere where you have an open platform to ask advice, or just to share experiences and say, is it just me? I found that really great. So if anybody feels on here that is something that they might benefit from too, I'd highly recommend. I think it's Common People, and I think they have a LinkedIn page as well. So yeah, and I don't know if you want to share a link later on or anything, then I'm happy to provide one. But yeah, that's my experience.
That's a great tip, to find actually a community of potential mentors as well. Even if they're not official mentors, you can learn from them. And Ceri, you mentioned that you have experience both with mentors and with professional coaches. How would you go about, or how would you advise to someone who is interested in getting a mentor? How does one find a mentor? How does one approach someone to ask for mentorship? Is there an etiquette is there a how-to?
Mm-hmm. So I think in many cases it happens organically if you're lucky enough to be working with somebody in that sort of space, that you are able to learn from. It kind of just happens. And similar to what Louie said around platforms, I am on a number of platforms as a mentor. Now, these platforms I don't think existed, 15, 20 years ago when I was looking for mentorship and when I was younger in my career. But I do I mentor some people from those platforms right now, and have also reached out to other people as mentors. I probably wouldn't say I've worked with them in detail, but that's definitely, you know, a way to do it as well. And that contract or understanding is immediate, right? They are on there as a mentor, you are a mentee, you're reaching out, and you're engaging in that way. I would say that the one potentially tricky thing there is you need to have a mentorship, or be a mentee with somebody that you really click with, that you can kind of learn from. So you might have to trial a few people if you're going through that sort of, you know, Tinder type matching thing with a mentor mentee. You're going to have to, you know, maybe kiss a few frogs before you actually find the right person.
Great answer. I like it. Well, I guess this is quite related, but also not necessarily. What about networking? Do you, in order to progress in your career, do you have to attend events? Do you have to shake hands with all the right people? So does this play a role at all, or is it all about the experience?
So for me personally, one of my deepest regrets in my younger years is not networking enough. I had this belief that networking was fake, and you were being fake by, you know, force making contacts. I have since grown out of that and very much realized the benefit of networking. I have received many of my jobs through my network. I mean, operations director roles have come through my network, and specifically with my coaching at the moment, fundamentally network driven. You know, I rely heavily on a previous network, but have also really upped my game in terms of trying to create a new found network. And I do that through a number of ways. So communities like this, events like this, face-to-face events as well. And I have also joined a number of volunteer organizations. So I volunteer my time for a number of things. As I said, I mentor as well. So I mentor across a number of platforms. I'm on the board of directors of a few companies as well. So it's kind of a lot of time spent from a pro bono or a volunteer perspective, but it puts me in certain places where I can network and I can build those relationships, which I know or am very hopeful will help me to expand my coaching business.
Thank you. What about you, Louie?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that networking is absolutely crucial. And I think if you're a junior designer and you're freelancing and you go into a setting and, you know, maybe it's only for like one day, you know, some of my early kind of placements when I first came up to London were like, you know, 1 day or 2 days or something. And back in the days when you always had to go into an office, just always connect with those people after, always follow up. You know, it was great working with you, find them on LinkedIn, like connect any way you can, so that every time you're kind of building up your network bigger. I mean, for me, the same as Ceri, like I'd say the vast majority of my work comes through word of mouth and from network and from people that I've worked with, like through a wide range of companies. And, you know, we'll come back at certain points and work together, and then I'll think about them. And also as well, I would say, keep like an open mind. Like sometimes you'll meet people in work situations that you don't necessarily click with immediately, but you have no idea the outside pressures, what's going on in their work, what restrictions they're having. And, you know, maybe the project that you've worked together on, you've thought, oh, you know, that was like really hard work. Don't dismiss that, because, you know, they might be completely different on another project, and you just don't know what was going on. So I'd say kind of keep an open mind with that, and always appreciate that you don't have the whole picture. So don't dismiss those connections. And Yeah, and also, going to the networking things, and I think if you can in person, that's great. But I think that now you've got such a big range. Do what works for you. If it's mainly online, that's absolutely just as valid as going in person. If you can go in person, just find something that's really relevant for you and make that your kind of focus. And then as you go further up, I'd say make sure that you're connecting with different levels of people and kind of keeping an eye on, some really great juniors, or like expanding outside of what you might necessarily kind of work with, whether it's not all entirely in the creative side, because you might find that that when you're kind of higher up and you're looking for those people, that's when you need those types of connections as well.
Thank you. All right, we have one last question before we move on to the questions from the audience. If you were to give 1 or 2 pieces of advice to someone who is very inspired by your story and wants to follow a similar career path, what would this advice be?
So from my perspective, kind of just reiterating what we just said about network, it is imperative. Build your network. I would also say understand your values and what you want to do. So actually, love what you want to do and make your value clear to the people that you work with. So I have worked with many people. Some are, overly chatty and kind of overly clear about what their value is to the business, and others are more sort of quiet in the corner and hope that people see their value. And sometimes you have a manager or people around you that are aware enough to see that, but sometimes people are just so busy that they don't have that sort of mental time and space to see your value. So show your value, make it clear, articulate it, talk about it, shout about it. And I think the last thing for me is either get yourself a coach or a mentor that can help guide you. And really the value there is that they can help you to get from A to Z faster than you can get there yourself.
Thanks, great tips. Louie, what would you add to the list?
I definitely double back on that and say totally agree with everything that's just been said there. Definitely the networking. Keep building that network. Don't be afraid to reach out. Everybody's busy and no one ever minds kind of a quick reach out. And if you're reaching out to kind of local design agencies and things like that, if you're starting out to get a bit of experience, then that can also be a great route as well. And I think to keep on learning, when you do start working in the creative environment, don't kind of think that that's it so far as you're kind of learning. Keep kind of taking, there's such a wide range of courses now that it doesn't have to be really expensive, or it doesn't have to kind of be in person, but kind of just keeping an eye on what's happening in the design world and kind of keeping your hand on the pulse for that one. And stay open to a really wide range of inspiration. I don't know about anybody else, but I rarely get inspired by reading, a design article. Most of my inspiration comes from chatting to people, overhearing things, seeing things, on the TV, or seeing things out in the real world, and having that design eye in mind when you are experiencing these things, I think makes you a much more rounded designer and able to put things into that context that I talked about earlier.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from our attendees? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question, or use the chat if you prefer it this way. Sai, yes?
Hiya. I was wondering if either of you have an online portfolio that you actually market yourself to promote your roles and your skills, and how effective it is you find it.
From a creative point of view, yeah, I have my online portfolio. I'm also part of a collective, so I have that site as well. So I think it's crucial. I mean, if you're a creative, you need to be able to quickly show the work that you've done, especially because everybody's so time short when they're looking at portfolios and things. Just be able to send that over and keep updating it as well. Definitely, it's tempting not to. I'm guilty of it, but do.
So I'm weak in this area, and I know that. So I didn't really put much effort into this from an ops director perspective, because I was just getting the work through network and kind of didn't really need to. As a coach, I absolutely have to. And I know this, so it's kind of like on my Trello board for January to start thinking about and to build their online presence.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ilaria, you raised your hand.
Hi, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to ask a question to Louie specifically. How do you best showcase your creative work obviously as a senior designer and art director? Do you have any recommendation how to, about storytelling, how to really showcase the problem you solved?
Yeah, I guess it depends. It's dependent on each kind of instance, really. But for me personally, I do tend to kind of show quite finished pieces and finished visuals. I find that a lot of people don't like to see things more finished than you would think. So I always try to kind of make sure that it's presented really beautifully. And I think I spend some time really explaining that, and whether that's kind of like in a story fashion or the impact that it's had. And also you're kind of showcasing yourself as a whole. So if it's not one particular project, then maybe having a voice out there, I think is important as well as showcasing your work.
Thank you.
And not be, so don't be afraid to kind of have an opinion and be outspoken on various things.
Thanks.
We have a question from George. Have you ever had a period in your professional career when you felt that the predetermined career direction is not exactly the one you expected?
So I can jump in here. So predetermined career direction is not exactly the one you expected. So I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but I can give a response in sort of in my personal situation. So I was in ops for 20 plus years, and I was really good at it. But there came a time where I realized that there were some parts of it that I truly loved and others that I just didn't love anymore. Like I was just over it. I probably loved it in my 20s and my early 30s when, I was working 12, 18 hours a day and really gave my life to work. But I didn't want that anymore. I wanted a really strong work-life balance. I wanted to focus more on family. And so I think, I don't want to kind of beat the drum here, but I worked with a coach earlier in the year, and I really, really became very clear on the things that I loved about the job and that I didn't love about the job, and the things that I really wanted in my life. What were my values? What were my strengths? And the answer for me was executive coaching. So working with people and helping them to be empowered and to move forward in their own personal journeys. So, George, I'm not sure if that actually answered your question or not.
Yes, partly. Thank you for the answer. And that is what I wanted to went in. No, how can I put it? So through my career in the creative industry, I had to face the line that from junior I need to go into middleweight, then senior, then I need to be an art director or creative director at the end. I really like this one. I fit at some point, as Ceri, you mentioned, I fit somewhere into this line. But now I'm just thinking that, well, I am all right as a graphic designer. I am all right managing projects, but I don't really want to go into the people section. So what kind of choice can I have in this case? I can say constantly that, yeah, I am just a graphic designer and I'm a heavyweight. I am really fine with design and that is what I want to do. But I'm going to cost myself out from the part of the industry, if you see what I mean, because I'm not going to get into those projects. I'm not going to get that work, etc., etc. So I'm not that competitive as, for example, a creative director would be. If you see now what I mean, that this kind of predetermined routes that everybody has to follow for the success and for the money as well.
Yeah,
I'm being long-winded a bit.
no, I totally get it, and I think for me, I've always really loved kind of like the people side of it as well, but I've definitely worked with people that haven't like that, and I think like as long as you're kind of clear about that being the case from the beginning and what your strengths are, I think shouting about your strengths is a kind of like a much kind of better route to do it. And yes, I don't know kind of money wise, rate wise, whether, you know, obviously there's those factors, but, you know, doing something that you find you know, fits with you really well is just as valid as being hungry for the next step. And to be honest, I think it makes, you know, if you're clear about that, it makes you stronger in what you are doing, and definitely a better person to have in the team.
Yeah, thank you for both anyway, because I got inspiration what I can apply onto my journey in the industry. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from Julia. Julia, are you able to unmute yourself and ask your question, or would you like me to read it?
Hello, hi all. Yeah, my question is really more about, I've done lots of freelance jobs during the year, but I spent a long time trying to receive money from clients lately, which put me quite down because it shouldn't be like this. And therefore, I'm not sure anymore if I want to stay into the freelance job career or move back to the more kind of part-time permanent jobs. So do you have any tips? Did you ever find yourself in a situation like this when, you know, you spend so much time trying to get paid from clients, or clients come back with feedback so that you can close projects and finally invoice them? Yeah, that's where I am at the moment.
Louie, you might be best taking this one.
Yeah. Okay. It is hard. I think we've all been there, definitely chasing some invoices. So you're not alone. I think that I think so far as kind of not closing off things and clients coming back with amends and things, I just think you make sure that you're kind of really thinking through your pricing and quoting, whether you literally say, I'm sorry, but we've worked previously and I can only work kind of on a day rate, or you factor in the time. If it's a new client, I would say it's perfectly valid to as well to put kind of like 50% upfront, or to do some sort of payment structure so that you're not always just doing 100% of your work you know, and then waiting for the payment. And I think yeah, you can do like a combination of those things, but if you feel like you're in a situation where you're chasing a lot of invoices, then definitely start doing something where you kind of ask for a proportion of that, whether that's a split of 30 40 30 or like a 50 and 50 on completion. And also I changed my payment terms to quite a short terms, because I had one particular client, although they were good, they would always pay quite late, and it just enabled me to chase them sooner. And when they did chase them, they paid me, but I just didn't want to wait my 30 days. So I changed it to like 2 weeks or something, and it just gave them the nudge that they needed. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
That's great. Can I ask as well if this is something that would happen if you're part of a collective, or so you have your terms and conditions directly with your clients, or this goes through the collective?
This goes through the collective, and we'll have payment terms and breakdowns.
Okay, thanks.
I mean, it's still a risk ultimately. If somebody doesn't want to pay for creative work, then they don't. But you know, I think you set up as many processes as you can, and one of those is definitely payment
All right,
upfront for a proportion.
thank you.
Thank you. I think we have Ilaria and Greta with more questions. So Ilaria, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, I would like to ask how to step up from senior designer to creative director role.
I guess it depends on kind of the situations, but I think a great one is to kind of get somewhere where you can work. And usually, like for me, those situations have been with maybe startups or smaller companies and things like that, where you have that opportunity to take on more responsibility. And I think that can be you know, just to be a bit outspoken about saying, oh, you know, can I get involved in this and can I get involved in that? And then at some point when you feel more confident, you can start putting yourself out there at that kind of more managerial role. But just you know, whether you're a senior designer helping mentor a junior, whether you're going in and running kind of some weekly production meetings and things like that, I think that all really helps. Really, it's your kind of confidence and your experience, and then you can start going out for bigger things. But usually that's easier to do if you've got somebody that you work with quite regularly, or you've got a long-term contract.
I understand. Yeah, so be proactive and seek opportunities to really showcase, you know, that you have extra skills, managerial, abilities. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Greta, would you like to ask your question?
Yes. Hi. So I think this may go with networking and so on, but I would like to ask, so sometimes I feel like as a freelancer, my perspective about the future is very short-sighted, you know. So one day I'm doing this job, but the other day, so in the future, who knows? So I was wondering if you ever feel this way too, and if so, how do you cope with that?
Ceri, do you want to answer?
I feel like my answer is going to be pretty repetitive. So, I mean, I'll go through it quickly. So, yeah, I mean, I for many years was constantly questioning kind of, you know, what next, or do I enjoy this? Don't I enjoy this? Truly, the work with the coach this year was just life-changing for me. It really brought an immense amount of clarity. And I wouldn't say that this is where I will be forever. But, you know, next time that I start having these thoughts in my head, I will for sure work with a coach again. I won't wait. I will dive in immediately, and I will figure out what is actually wrong. What am I missing? What do I really enjoy? And where do I want to move to next?
Yeah, I think as well, from kind of a from my point of view as well, is to kind of see freelancing, being a freelancer is completely different to being permanent, and seeing that in itself is a career decision, and building up those clients and having that side. So yes, maybe the job is short, but you know, you are networking, you're building your client base up, and to relax into that as a kind of way of working, rather than having the stress. I always used to call it the Friday fear, when you didn't have anything booked the next day, and I definitely, like on the Monday, and I definitely have those thoughts, and I'm definitely not very good at sitting still in the quiet periods, but I think that comes over time, to just know and look back and have reassurance that, you know, you have made it this far and you've got clients and people are happy with your work, and you know, hopefully they pay you on time and all of those things. It gives you that kind of confidence to go, well, that like there's absolutely no reason why that would stop, as long as you're kind of keep putting the work in. But definitely to see freelance as something that is quite different to the kind of permanent base, and that part of the work needs to be done.
Okay, it's fine to know that you share my mind.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Eda, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, of course. Hey, thank you very much for all the informations. I want to ask you a question, like how you can find a balance to work with a new team, like as a part of team, because as a freelancer, always is like a feeling that maybe I'm feeling like a distance between the permanent team and freelancer one. So how you can handle, or how you see this?
So I can answer it from kind of two perspectives. So one as the freelancer, and one as a kind of a manager that's working with both a permanent team and a freelance team. So as the freelancer, I definitely felt that before, that kind of, you know, us and them feeling. I've always tried to build personal relationships. You know, pre-COVID, when we went into the office, I'd try and have sort of coffees. Post-COVID, I'd still try and have one-to-one meetings with individuals, just to try and build personal relationships. As a manager, working with a team that is distributed and has people from kind of, you know, both perm and contract, I try to replicate that. So I try to have sort of online events where we are socializing with each other. I try to have some, you know, things like retrospectives, or really try to understand how we can work better with each other. Very much like to share with the freelancers what is the culture of the business, and kind of like the unwritten rules. Yeah, I don't, Louie, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that's really great advice. I think the only thing I'd say is that a lot of the time, I think it's probably you yourself worrying more about that kind of fitting in, and you know, to have kind of confidence in your input on a project, and your ability to do the work and be part of the team. And I think that once other people see that, they don't worry anyway.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, I think we're done with all the questions. So thank you very much, Louie and Ceri, for answering and sharing so many tips with us. I felt really inspired by this session, and I'm sure that everyone here in the session felt the same way. So thank you once again. A big announcement to the community, or to all attendees. This has been the last special event of 2023, but there are more events in 2024 coming. So stay tuned, and I hope to see you at the next event. And in the meantime, if you have an idea about what you would like to hear about next, let us know so that we can incorporate it into 2024 calendar. And well, actually, it's only the 6th of December, so I don't need to say Merry Christmas to you yet. But if you ever have any questions, find us on Slack. Once again, thank you very much for joining today, and have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks all.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.